What if the bank had already given you the key to freedom and you just never learned how to turn it? That sounds impossible, right? Banks are the bad guys. They charge fees, they deny loans, they make you wait in line just to feel small. But what if I told you that somewhere in your wallet or on your phone, there is a tool that the rich have been using for decades to buy freedom? And most people use it to buy pizza. Let me tell you about a woman named Elena. Elena was 29. She worked at a call center. She made decent money, but not enough to feel free. Every month she watched her paycheck disappear into rent, food, and a streaming service she barely used. She felt stuck. She felt like freedom was something other people had, people with rich parents or lucky breaks. And then one day, something small happened that changed everything. Elena applied for a credit card, not because she needed it, because the bank kept sending her letters. 0% interest for 18 months. She thought, why not? She got approved for $5,000. She used it for groceries. She used it for gas. She paid it off slowly like everyone does, and she never thought about it again. But here is the part nobody talks about. That same tool, that same piece of plastic, could have bought her a small business, a used vending machine, a website that generates income, a piece of equipment she could rent out. The bank handed her borrowed money at 0%, and she spent it on things that disappeared. The rich do the opposite. They borrow the bank's money, buy things that make more money, and pay the bank back with the profits. Elena bought groceries. Someone else bought a cash-flowing asset. Same tool, completely different life. At first it seems fine until you notice something. The bank does not care what you buy. They do not call you and say, hey, maybe invest this in something that pays you back. They just want their money back, plus a little extra. Your financial education is not their problem. Your freedom is not their goal, but their money, that is available to anyone who understands the game. And that is where things start to feel strange, because the game is not about having money. It is about using other people's money to buy things that make you money. This is called leverage. But do not get scared by that word. I am explaining this like you are 12. Imagine trying to move a 500-kilogram rock with your bare hands. Impossible, right? That is saving. Now imagine using a 3-meter steel bar. With just one finger, the rock lifts into the air. The bar is the credit. The pivot point is your knowledge. Without the bar, you spend your life pushing rocks that never move. And most people don't even notice this. They think the person who saves is smarter, more responsible, less risky. But here's the secret. The person who borrows is not taking a bigger risk. They are transferring the risk. The bank takes the risk of the loan. The tenant takes the risk of paying rent. The borrower takes the risk of managing the deal. But the borrower also gets years of income, years of experience, and years of building something. The saver gets a savings account and a dream that stays a dream. Here's a question that might make you uncomfortable. How much money have you left on the table because you were afraid of the bank? How many deals did you not do? How many assets did you not buy? How many years of your life did you spend waiting to have enough when the enough was already available, just in a different form? This is the part that changes everything. The bank's money is not a trap. It is a bridge. But bridges only work if you walk across them. If you stand at the edge and say, bridges are dangerous, you never get to the other side. The other side is where freedom lives. Not because you are rich, because you own things that work for you. Because your money makes money while you sleep. Because you stopped trading hours for dollars and started trading ideas for assets. But here's the part nobody talks about. You cannot just borrow money and hope. That is how people get hurt. You have to borrow with a plan. You have to buy things that actually produce income. You have to understand the numbers. This is not gambling. This is arithmetic with consequences. If you borrow $5,000 at 0% and you buy a small asset that makes you $200 a month, you have bought a piece of freedom. If you borrow $5,000 and buy a new phone, you have bought a smaller bank account. The math is simple, the discipline is hard, and that is where things start to feel strange. Because the same people who will finance a car they cannot afford or a vacation they do not need will not finance a business that could change their life. They will sign a 6-year car loan without blinking, but they will not sign a 2-year loan for a piece of equipment that generates income. The psychology is backwards. We borrow to consume, and we are proud of it. We refuse to borrow to produce, and we call it wisdom. At first, it seems fine until you notice something. The people who design these loans know this. They know you will borrow for a kitchen renovation before you borrow for a rental property. They know you will finance a couch before you finance a course that teaches you a skill. They make it easy to borrow for things that keep you comfortable, and complicated to borrow for things that make you free. This is not an accident. Comfortable people make reliable employees. Free people make unpredictable choices. But this is where it gets worse. The longer you wait, the more expensive freedom becomes. Not because prices go up, because your time goes down. Every year you do not own an asset is a year that asset does not pay you. Every year you save instead of leverage is a year you stay exactly where you are. The bank's money does not get cheaper. Your life does. Let me tell you about another person. His name was David. David was 35. He had good credit. He had a stable job. He had everything the bank looks for, and for 10 years he did nothing with it. He was afraid. His parents had lost a house in 2008. He had trauma around debt. So he saved. He was careful. He was responsible. And at 45, he looked around and realized that everyone who had borrowed wisely was ahead of him. Way ahead. They had properties. They had businesses. They had options. David had a savings account and a job he was starting to hate. And most people don't even notice this. They think David was being smart, avoiding risk, playing it safe. But safe is not a destination. Safe is a delay. And delays have a cost. The cost is the life you could have lived, the freedom you could have had, the person you could have become if you had just understood that the bank's money was a tool, not a weapon. Here is the question that matters. If the bank offered you $100,000 tomorrow at a low interest rate, with 10 years to pay it back, what would you do? Really think about it. Would you pay off your current debt? Would you buy a nicer house? Would you finally start that business? Or would you do what most people do, which is nothing, because the number feels too big and the responsibility feels too heavy? Be honest, because your answer tells you exactly where you are. If you do not have a plan for borrowed money, you are not ready for freedom. Freedom requires a plan. Freedom requires knowing what you will buy, how it will pay you back, and what you will do when things go wrong. The bank's money is not magic. It is gasoline. It makes the engine run faster, but you still need to know where you are driving. But here's the part nobody talks about. You can start tiny. You do not need $100,000, you need $5,000, or $2,000, or even $500. You need to borrow a small amount, buy a small asset, prove to yourself that the math works, and then do it again. This is how confidence is built. Not by reading books, not by watching videos, by doing a small, real thing with real money and real consequences. And this is the part that changes everything. The first time you buy an asset with borrowed money and that asset pays you back, something shifts in your brain. You realize that money is not something you earn and hoard. It is something you move, you borrow, you buy, you earn, you pay back, you keep the difference. The bank's money becomes a partner, not a predator. And you become someone who knows how to use the system instead of someone the system uses. Elena eventually figured this out. Not because she got smarter, because she got desperate. At 34, she was still at the call center, still watching her paycheck disappear, still feeling stuck. And one day, she remembered that credit card, the one with 0% interest. She had $3,000 left on the limit. She found a small website for sale. It made $150 a month from ads. She bought it. She was terrified. She checked the numbers every day. The first month, the website only made $40. Elena panicked. She thought the bank would win. She thought she had made a terrible mistake. But then she understood something. Those $40 were free money. $40 she did not have to work for. $40 that showed up while she slept. That is when the game changed for her. She kept the website. She learned how to improve it. By month 6, it was making $200 a month. She paid off the credit card in 14 months, and she still owned the website. That was 5 years ago. Elena now owns 4 websites. She still works, but she does not need to. The bank's money bought her the first one. Her courage bought the rest. She told me something I will never forget. She said, "I spent years thinking the bank was my enemy. Turns out they were just waiting for me to show up with a plan." And most people don't even notice this. They think Elena got lucky. They think she found a good deal. But Elena thinks she finally stopped being afraid of a tool that was always there. The bank's money, the leverage, the bridge, it was always available. She just had to decide to walk across it. So here is what I want you to do. Not tomorrow, today. Look at what is available to you. A credit card with space, a personal loan with a decent rate, a line of credit you never use, something the bank has already approved you for. And ask yourself one question. What is the smallest asset I could buy with this that would pay me back? Not a stock that might go up, not crypto that might explode, something boring, something simple. A small website, a piece of equipment you can rent, a product you can buy cheap and sell for more. Something that produces income, something that works while you sleep, something that in 1 year will have paid for itself and started paying you. Because this is the truth that fear hides. The bank does not want your soul. They want their money back with interest. If you can give them that and keep the profits, you have won. You have used their system against their intentions. You have bought your freedom with their money. And they will line up to lend to you again because you are now the kind of person who pays back. The kind of person who uses debt as a bridge, not a bandage. The bank's money is not the enemy. Fear is, ignorance is. The story your parents told you that all debt is bad, that is the enemy. Because that story keeps you small. It keeps you saving. It keeps you waiting. It keeps you dependent on a paycheck while other people are building empires with the same tools you were too scared to touch. The choice is yours. You can keep believing that freedom requires money you do not have. Or you can understand that freedom requires using the money that is already available, with a plan, with discipline, with the courage to act before you feel ready. The bank has already said yes. The only question is whether you will say yes to yourself. Wake up. The bridge is right there. Walk across it.